Since 2005, I've been obsessed with YouTube and became one of the foreknown experts in audience development, working with brands and YouTube creators to build audiences over content. And then with that audience, that we engage them, that they'll fund future projects. And so a few creators that you might know, like one's Mr. Beast. I've been working with him for 8 years, seven years, somewhere around there. Helped him develop kind of the strategy. He just crossed 300 million subscribers on YouTube, but worked with a lot of big brands like Amazon, Nintendo, Epic Games. We can go into all the TV outlets, but my skill set is like I understand audiences and how they're going to connect to content, and then we try to figure out a way to monetize it in ways to expand the reach to develop more people. So it's creating what we call a feedback loop. So it's like as people are aware, they feel something, they love the show, they want to share. We get them activated a little bit deeper. They'll bring in new people. So 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 16, 32, until you got billions of people watching the show. So was able to do that, and then I also own a conference called Vid Summit, and Vid Summit is where all these top creators come in from all around the world to learn from each other. And I got this short film that a creator made, and I get a lot of content. I see a lot of content, and I can see what good content is, and if it has legs, and what it can do. Like I'm just kind of that connoisseur of content. And I saw this short film, and immediately I could tell it was extremely low budget. We're talking low budget. But within about 2 to 3 minutes, I was captivated because it was different. And I heard it was about the birth of Jesus Christ, but Jesus Christ wasn't even, like Joseph and Mary wasn't even in it at that moment. And I'm like, okay, I never thought about it, how it had been, seeing the birth of Jesus Christ through the perspective of the shepherd. And so I was kind of getting pulled into that story. And what was beautiful from that story was give me context of something that I've heard hundreds of times, as a kid about the birth of Jesus Christ, but I never thought about it being from the perspective of someone else. I always thought it from, Mary and Joseph's perspective. And what was beautiful from that was I started to see things that I never really considered. And then I grew up on a farm, and I knew how it was to be around animals and the complications of it. And I also get kind of the chiding that happens on farm life, and seeing the shepherd. And I want to give you some context because some of you might not know, but if you were to take the lowliest class of citizen in first century, it would be a shepherd. Shepherd is like the lowest of the lows. Well, here was this shepherd that was the lowest of the shepherds. He was being picked on, he was hurt, this whole thing. So it was around his perspective. And I could see his inner desire for redemption. He wanted that inner desire of the Messiah that's been prophesied about. So he was always trying to learn. And all he was rejected through the whole thing. And I'm like, man, whoever's writing this is really good, because immediately I could identify with someone. Immediately I could see a fresh take and a fresh approach to content, even with a low budget. It was like making up for, like I just stopped looking at the set design. It was just like extremely low budget, but I got lost into the story. And then 2, I found myself considering things based on the dialogue. And there was one moment that it was so powerful for me, and it just moved me to emotional tears. It was the moment that he made an offering, and the Pharisee rejected his offering of the lamb, and he got kicked out. And then he was like, kind of getting knocked around by the shepherds. And then he hears in the synagogue them prophesying and reading scripture, and so he kind of gravitates to them. And here he is, just listening and wanting to learn, and has that really innate desire just to understand who this Messiah is and what have you. And then he got kicked out. He was like unclean. He's like kind of bleeding a little bit, and they're like, oh, you're too dirty to be in here. Like, what are you? You're stinking up the place. And so he gets kicked out. But this is the moment that was so beautiful. That's the first time that you see Mary and Joseph with the donkey, and they're coming through town, and they stopped him and says, hey, where's the well? It's a long travel. Like, where's that at? And that's when I'm like, oh, this is so good. This is so good. And he points down where the well water is, and then he realizes he had a satchel. And that satchel had water. And here he gave that water to the woman that was going to bring forth the living water, that is the living water. And I was just crying. It was just so symbolic. It was so prophetic. And I'm like, I got to be a part of this. I don't even know what this is. Like, I need to be a part of it. And I heard that this creator was wanting to do a TV show. He's been trying to get it made for several years, and nobody would actually fund it because, this type of content doesn't work from their perspective. But what I saw, it spoke to me. And I made the comment, and I says, I don't care if I just have to hold the light. I will hold the light. I just want to be involved with this. And so the next week, after this conference that I had, I flew and met Dallas Jenkins for the first time. And I've worked with personalities, over the course of my career, and I have a gift where I can see really great content, but I can see people that are magnetic. I just know where it is. And it's a pretty funny story, but I look at Dallas, I'm like, man, you're really tall. And he goes, man, you're really round. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna be brothers. And it was a moment where we laughed, and he shared his vision of what he wanted to create. And I was all in. I was all in after he explained to me how the show was gonna be. It wasn't gonna be your standard show. And he wanted to show the authenticity of people. Like, I think a lot of the content is sterilized, where, it's just creating that moment was in the Bible, and we want to be as biblically accurate as it. Well, they never considered what it would have been like being someone seeing what was happening in the Bible in that moment. And he started to say, hey, we're going to discover the authentic Jesus, but it's going to be through the eyes of those that he called. And you're going to see the challenges they go through. And I'm like, that's going to be brilliant. It's going to be huge. And he's like, oh, well, like, we got to get it made first or whatever. And it was a several-hour conversation, and Dallas and I decided, let's see if it works. So I got on the phone, and I called my wife right over here, and I'm like, hey, Carolyn, we're gonna get in a new business. And she goes, oh, what's this new business gonna be? We're gonna make a TV show about Jesus. And she goes, okay, that's nice, dear. I come with crazy ideas a lot. And so that was kind of where it all came together. But this is the most important point. This is probably the most important point in the whole origin of the story of The Chosen, which was this. Dallas was completely broken because of his past, and you probably heard about all the different details that have happened to them. And he was finally at a point where if it worked, it worked. He's going to try his best, but he's not going to put his, metric of success on how the show does. Like, he's going to go from there. And if this is meant to be, it's meant to be. But the difference was this. I felt in my own life that I was ready for this moment. Like, I've been working with the biggest audiences in the world. I understand great content, but I understood that he, Dallas Jenkins, could be that influencer that can encourage people to follow the vision that he has, which is to create this TV show and show how different it is. And all they needed to see is the pilot episode is what we call it, but it's that short film that impacted me. And we just need to get in front of the right people with the right type of message. And then having him be at the forefront. Now, this is a little disruptive in Hollywood because normally your executive producers or your creators of the show or writers, they're not in front of the camera being a personality type. That's just like almost taboo, where you're like, oh, we're like taking down that mystique. I want that mystique. Well, no. It's actually creating loyalty because they see the vision that he's sharing and want to be a part of it. And so that was the moment where we went on forming the company. Dallas and I formed a company, we brought other investors on early on that just kind of seed money, brought it in. and was able to greenlight the writing and get Dallas and the writers together. So it's Dallas, Ryan, and Tyler together. Start writing some scripts, because that's what you need. And then another thing is we needed money to buy the shepherd. It was like that whole thing. And so this is where I want all of you to understand there's so many people involved in this. And it wasn't cheap to get, we're talking, we had to pay for the full production and then some to the church that Dallas made that short film for. And even though I said it's low budget, it's a pretty big budget when you're just like, oh, just, take it out of your bank account, whatever. But this is the moment where I had to call my wife and say, hey, we need to buy this, and we need to use our own personal capital to buy this. And we have to negotiate it with the church to get it there. We need this whole thing. And here we are, have a lot of people investing in this vision of what it can become. And no one's even read a word on the new scripts. No one ever seen anything. All we had was the vision, literally the vision, what Dallas wanted to create. And then a little short film of something that was impactful, but I was always wondering, well, what if he had a decent budget? What would that actually look like? What could he actually do? And so that led to breaking the all-time crowdfunding record in film and television. It was held by Mystery Science Theater 3000 and Veronica Mars. They were like neck and neck tied. And we had no audience, we had no loyalty, and yet we were able to break that record and then to build upon that record of where we're at today. And so what was beautiful was here we had a very interesting approach at bringing on the crowd to help fund and get that whole process going. But what was more beautifully than that was the decision that we made early on is to do the behind the scenes before it even comes out. Let people along on the journey, connect with them. So we were creating content. I laugh because I literally held every position of this company except writer and director. Every position, and Dallas has held a lot of positions too. It was like, here he was. I'm like, you got to engage with the community. So we're all doing live streams and I'm all doing the tech end, and he's being the personality type. And sometimes we, jump on live streams or videos together. And then he would stay up till 3 or 4 in the morning because he doesn't sleep very well. He has to go to bed at 3 o'clock. I don't know. It's really weird. But anyway, he would just be replying to every single comment, every DM. Okay. Why? Because we made it from the beginning. We're going to make the show for one person. And we're going to be more mindful to go out of our way to, if they left so much energy and time to create a comment, that we're going to go reply to that comment. And it's probably the first comment that's going to be replied to probably in the life of what they're doing outside of their friendship, right? But that built loyalty and trust. And we still didn't have a product. We took them on the journey. Now, fast forward, when we greenlit season 1, we were trying to collect the money. It was kind of weird the way that it was doing a reggae, where you had to go in, you had to say, okay, do you have interest, whatever. By the time that we were starting to collect the money, we just didn't get enough money to produce all 8 episodes. And so we actually produced only 4 episodes down the road in Weatherford, Texas. And what's crazy was, here was this lady that felt called to create Capernaum in the middle of nowhere, Texas. And yet it was perfect for us because we had some establishment of buildings that were there and was able to come in and get it at a rate that was really good for us, because it's really costly to build first century. It was just way out of control. But this is where James comes in. We really didn't give him a deep budget. And we're like, hey, take these popsicle sticks and some mud and make it what it needs to be. And he was able to just make something beautiful. God gave him talents, and he's able to do it. And it was that whole moment. But it was the writing, the dialogue was so fresh. And I wanted to share with you my first day on set. It was magical. Okay, Dallas has this tendency, I don't know why this is, to take some of the most complicated things that he needs to do, and it's day one. When you come on with a crew, it's you need to get some gel going on. I don't know if you guys still in production. It's you have to have things that are happening, production, you need to get your own rhythm down. Well, there's two adages. You never work with animals and you never work with kids just right out of the gate. It's just very complicated. Well, our first shoot was episode 3 of season 1. So it was like literally first 7-8 days, Jesus with kids. And you're like, we don't know how to go. And there's like all these regulations that come in and there's like this rhythm whole thing. And it was the first time I always just saw Jonathan Rumi just in film and then in interview and just on Zoom or whatever. But it's the first time I seen him on the set. And Jonathan, oh man, I don't want to speak for him. I'll let him speak for himself on this. But I can only imagine that he was thinking, man, here I'm about to portray Jesus. And yet that's a lot of pressure, coming on. And I would assume that he was nervous going on. But the moment, the first take was Jesus with the kids. And it was like one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen in my life. Because I've never seen Jesus with kids and come down to their level. And I knew this was going to be big because I saw something just in that moment that I got it. And I thought, I know this is kind of like an episode that was different. Dallas actually wrote that episode. It was like always been on him. It was like, how would Jesus interact with kids and that whole thing? And just within a minute, I saw Jonathan shine. I saw the light of Jesus through him, but I saw the connection through his eyes with those kids. And it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. And little things is like, it was stirring things in my mind in that moment. And I thought, you know what? This is going to be so amazing. It's going to grow massively. Now, come to find out, when we got the first 4 episodes made, the hardest thing actually occurred. Okay, raising the money was actually the easiest thing. It was the easiest thing. Do you know what the hardest thing was? It's get people to watch the show. It was like so hard. I'll never forget. We were showing it to people, and they're like, "Oh, this is weird," and just this whole thing. Because it was like not quite done yet, But when we were able to get it to a point where like people are having a hard time seeing it, and on the platform they were watching, it was very difficult to watch on the platform, and we're like, we just need people to watch it. And I just remember having a conversation with Dallas, and I'm like, hey, we actually need to do this differently, and maybe we just need to put it on DVD and just have something physically to give. And I know that a lot of people don't have DVD players, but the people that helped us get where we're at here today, a lot of them still have DVD players, and they can see the vision behind it. And maybe we just need to do that. But it was the most difficult thing, is to actually get people to watch the show. My own kids didn't even want to watch it. It was like, it was just like, I don't know what this is. We made the 4 other episodes, and what was beautiful from that was that's when more the disciples were introduced, and Peter's story was very emotionally connected to the audience. And still, once again, it was about getting people to see it. That's been the most difficult thing, is we all have busy lives, and how do we get them to stop? And so we were doing everything on our end, social media wise, to just get clips and things out there that it would connect with people, and they were interested in it. And they're like, well, how do we watch it? And it was like, it was a difficult thing, because we had no big studio behind us at all. All we had was our small little army of people that believed in the project, believed what we were doing, and was all in. And so I want to just share with you just some things that we don't really talk about, but it's critical for the success that we had. It was the activation of the people that we had a personal relationship that was developed through social media that led us to where we're at today. They became our army. Because like what they felt like they needed to get in front of people. And so it extended from just Dallas and I doing everything, that we had these volunteers that could do it, and they felt like this mission to get it in front of people. And so that's kind of where it all started. And I think a lot of people love The Chosen. when we have success. But the first time that we showed The Chosen was at the National Religious Broadcasters event. All the evangelical leaders come in. We had a room of 3,000 seats, and we were going to show The Chosen. We had 76 people show up. Oh, you were there. You're one of those guys. Okay. This is what I love about that moment. We were competing with a lot of stuff, and there's only 76 people that was willing to come in and see what we were doing and get behind what we were doing. But I can tell you this. Once that episode played, that 76 grew to 120 people. I watched it. I counted. I'm like the marketing data guy and trying to figure out audiences, and I'm watching them. I'm not watching the movie, see how they react to things, and that's just my nature of what I do. And what was amazing from that, out of the 120 people, not one person left the room. What did they do? They wanted to talk to us. They wanted to see the vision. They want to see more. Like, how are you doing this? All this other things. I stayed up till 3 a.m. just answering questions. And what we're able to do, and what's in a beautiful thing that we're able to do, is we're able to tell a story in a way that it's never been seen before on the most important thing that is relevant for today. And when you look about where the world's at today and what's happening in life, what Jesus taught 2,000 years ago is super relevant for what we need today, especially this rising generation that's coming up. And what's been beautiful, it speak to them because it's about those that he called and their transformation as they started to hear and understand his word. And so that's one of those beautiful, moments. And so that's kind of a little intro on that. I'll take any questions that you want, and there's no off limits. So they might say off limits, but there's no off limits with me.
Share what happened at the following year at NRB when it was in Dallas.
Yeah, it was.
We showed season 2.
Yeah.
Episode
Yeah. So one of the things that we're really good at, and this has to do with just the combination of what we built The Chosen on and what it means for people. We were asked to go back to NRB, and we're like, we spent a lot of money the first time to go get in front of like just 76 people that turned into 120. Is it really worth it? And we decided it could be worth it if we could turn it into a live stream. If we could make it more of a worldwide event where people could see the show that they've been wanting to see. And we're creating this moment where we could use technology. It will cost us a little bit, but if it goes out to the world, it's just amazing. We had a hard time filling seats the first year. There's just a lot of open seats. When we said that we were going to do that at NRB, we sold out 3,000 seats in 8 minutes. And I'm glad the fire marshal wasn't in town, because there's a lot more people than 3,000 people there. And there's people standing and whatever, and we had to turn a lot of people away, but that's why we wanted to do it online as well. And so I think for me, the other moment, and I'm glad that you brought that question in.
It felt like the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no,
it
was great. But there was a moment before that, which was we were trying to figure out what is our model to have self-sustaining. And the model was, hey, Derral, you do YouTube, and we've been doing all this stuff on YouTube. Well, what if we put it on YouTube? And this is coming from Dallas. I'm like, that's what I've been saying the whole time. I'm like, I know this ecosystem. We can get things happening. And so with a lot of deliberation and a lot of risk, here we were going to give it away for free for 7 days. We were going to just do an episode, give it for free. We just did 2 episodes at the beginning and whatever. What was amazing was the first night we did it. We just did our live stream like we normally do that you see, and we had some ways to engage with the viewers and ways that they can get behind the project. And then we showed the show, and then we kind of went deep dive a little bit into the kind of the episodes, but then the episode, and then also some of the ways that they can get behind us as well. That first night, making it free, we made more money, like 4 times more money in one night than we did all the time combined. And we're like, okay, that's great. We need that. That'll get us closer to making more of the show, right? And then the next night was quintupled off of the 4X. So it's 4X, then quintuple that. And remember I told you Dallas gets up really, he stays up really late. Like at 3 in the morning, he's like, can you talk? I'm like, I'm sleeping. And he's like, no, you're not, you're texting back. So we get on and he goes, I think we just got the answer. The Chosen needs to be for free. And I says, absolutely. And so that was the moment that we decided there would never be a paywall. It will always be free. Maybe there might be an exclusive amount of time that will help us get production there, but it will always be free. And so a lot of the decisions that we made is we just want this content to be seen in as many languages as possible, and we want it localized in ways that it will impact individuals of where they're at. And that's there. So I think that was that moment, and then that led to that next moment, which was really powerful, is understanding who we are, what we're not, and then also this cycle of gathering, which has been beautiful to watch. So, okay.
What was the initial conversation like when you approached Dallas to become kind of like the face of Chosen? Or was that kind of on?
It was awkward. I'll be honest with you, it was awkward. He goes, I do not want to do that. I'm like, no, you're going to do that. And he goes, no, I'm not. And Dallas and I have this bluntness, like it's very blunt. And an outside party would say, oh my gosh, you guys are so rude to each other. I'm like, no, this is how we communicate, and we don't take offense. Like, we really don't care what people think about us. That's why we gel. Like, have you seen the hate online about The Chosen? I mean, we're the Antichrist, right? But it's like, Dallas is the Antichrist. So let's just make that clear. Not me. But we don't. Yeah, but we don't care. But it was a healthy tension, and he's like, I don't get it. I don't get it. And I says, I can prove it to you. And he goes, I don't get it. I don't want it. And I says, it's not about fame. It's about community. And he wouldn't do it. But we actually did our first t-shirt. The first t-shirt was Binge Jesus. And I was like, hey, let's come up with something, put it on a t-shirt. We can do this. We need money to help sustain us, start building our teams. And he's like, I don't want to do it. And he goes, if we make $3,000, like, it'll be okay, right? I says, Dallas, I know that we have a small audience, but let's just put it on. Let's just put it this way. That was the moment he goes, okay, I'm an influencer. And he goes, okay, that's a beautiful way to get the community involved, because we agreed what the gifts would actually be. They're walking billboards. They're walking conversation starters. Binge Jesus, what does that mean? They're going to be talking about the TV show. So for us, we were looking at it as marketing. I was looking at it as audience development, where you're enlisting more people to talk about the show. That brings more people into watching the show, when then they want to, buy things and then talk about it. Like, it's like human nature. We just want to share, And so that's how the expansion went. But that's when he fully embraced, because he just wanted to make shows. He didn't want the spotlight. And even to this day, it's, I'll be honest with you, it's grueling. It's grueling on him. I don't wish it on anybody, because there's no privacy. And they're the target of things. And what's really sad is their family is the target of things too. And there's just a lot of weird people out there in the world. But what I can tell you is this: it was a necessary step to be where we're at here today. And it's impacting others to inspire them to create. And now he's a light helping new creators come out. Like, look at all the Christian projects that are coming on. And it's not because of the show, The Chosen, it's because of what we represent, this movement, which is Christian content doesn't need to be cheesy. It can actually be really good. I don't know if you guys seen The Promised Land, but holy crap, that's really good. And there's some great things that are out there that are coming. And that's what Dallas and I wanted to do. We wanted to inspire other creators to create.
Rich from the Times of Israel wanted to know, how do you make the show authentic when it comes to Jewish practices and customs from the first century?
Yeah, I love that. I love that question. One of the biggest concerns that we had was, how do we do the show justice? And to do it justice, you need to have the right type of people helping you kind of shape what the show can be. Because if you're not of Jewish descent and you don't understand Jewish culture and you don't understand Jewish history, but all you do is read the Bible, there's still a disconnect. And so early on, we had biblical advisors. And you can see who they are in the roundtables. That hasn't changed. And one of them is Rabbi Jason Sobel. And he's helped us understand and shape what Jewishness was in first century and what was important to them, but also what's important to them now. James actually got inspired to do what he does. You guys went on a tour through history of first century and other buildings that was there. He just loved that moment. So there's a lot of people going way in depth. When it comes to writing the scripts, they are so thorough to try to understand how it's going to be presented and the impact that it can have. And so the authenticity is really, really important with us. And I was just talking to, I was just in Mexico yesterday, and I was just talking to someone that is a first century historian and in biblical history and also first century in Jerusalem. And he goes, there was a moment that no one really caught in the show, but it told me how meticulous you guys are to the detail. And that moment was, well, we won't spoil some of that stuff, but it's just like, it was that moment where someone realized they were not following the path that they were on, and they started to believe in Jesus, and then they just cut off the traditions of Rome and their belief. And so it was just that moment of that small little detail, but that's where consultants and advisors and people that speak into what life would have been like in food. But we did our own research too. Like before we even started the show, we went back because we wanted to be there. Dallas had the scripts, and when he started to walk there, he realized, maybe I need to rethink a few of these things and really go more in depth on their story, their backstory, stuff like that. So I want to tell you the why my wife and I decided to do it. And this is really important for me. The moment I gave my heart to Jesus, I just wanted to build his kingdom in my own way. And everything that I did was trying a way to bring light in this dark world. And when I saw the show, I knew that could be some massive light, and people can transform because they could see themselves in stories, in characters. And so what really spoke to you in season 1?
Well, the first thing that I remember is the very first episode when Nicodemus came in to Mary.
Yeah.
And her statement of you have no power here.
Yeah.
It was like, I think as believers, we can kind of exist in a very warm and numb place.
Yeah.
And we can do things in Jesus' name, but if we don't know him, like, can you even imagine as a believer to walk into a place where somebody saying you have no power here? Like, it just felt this calling out of not monotony, but there's just been a numbness in my life in many ways.
Yeah.
So that rocked me.
I'm grateful that you shared that, because most projects wouldn't even take on anything remotely close to doing something like that. They'll like speak in tongues, and it's like, oh, whatever. But it was a very dark episode. And I remember talking to Dallas when I read the script. I go, man, this is super dark. Do we want to start this dark? And he goes, Derral, do you not know what the show is? They're one way. And when they meet Jesus, they become something completely different. And I'm like, okay, I trust you, but this is really dark. I don't know how they're going to take it. But it was just that beautiful transformation that was needed to understand what the show was really about. And honestly, it's proven to be true. That's where we connect, because we see these moments. It was that moment for you. There's probably other moments for other people, but it's that moments that speak to us. But this is what happens when content speaks to us, is we go and lean in and we consume. And then I guaranteed after you watched it, you shared it with people. That's just the natural thing that you do, right? And so you even took this moment to share with all of us, and I'm grateful for that. And there's one last tradition that we do at The Chosen. I don't think anyone's probably talked about it. But this is the hardest project ever. It is the hardest project because we have all these forces trying to stop something beautiful and good. And some people profess they're doing it because we're bad and it's not meant for the world because we're changing the Bible or whatever their concept is. And so we have all these moments that just kind of drag us down. And so we vowed that we will hear these stories like you just shared, and we're going to share it internally with our team. And we start out every board meeting with The Chosen with an impact story. We share every executive meeting that we have with an impact story. We have corporate retreats where we bring all our people in, so we share moments of impact. Why? Because we care about the one, just as Jesus did. And all we care is about that one person being impacted by the content, and that gives us the fuel that we need to endure all the other fiery darts that come at us. And so thank you for sharing that. I'm going to pass it on to our team. And congratulations to be a part of the Chosen family. Season 2 is a lot better than season 1. Season 3 is a lot better than season 2, but season 4, holy cow. But season 5, I am here to tell you, yeah, you better invest in Kleenex because you're gonna need it. You're gonna need it, so.
If you enjoy videos that follow your values like ours and you want to help us continue, go to movieguide.org/donate because we're actually a nonprofit. You may not know that, but we're working in Hollywood every day to help families have more choices that follows their values. And also subscribe right now.